Hi guys, today we're going to talk about the introductory paragraph. Okay, what's the purpose of an introductory paragraph? First, it gets the reader's attention. Second, it tells the reader what will be covered in the essay in the order it will be covered in. In other words, the order of the points you mention in the introduction must always match the order of the body paragraphs that come later in the essay. This is really important. So, what parts go into the introductory paragraph? Well, first, if I want to be interested at all, I have to hook the reader. And so that's designed to grab the attention immediately and give some indication about what the essay is going to be about. The next sentence is really tricky, or sentences, and it's called the transition. It moves the reader from the hook to the main force of the essay. So it begins to narrow the focus of the introduction, getting ready just before you state the thesis. And then the last thing in the introductory paragraph is the thesis. And the thesis clearly states the point of your essay and usually gives 2 or 3 reasons, points, ways that you're going to argue in the entire essay that will prove the thesis. And 99% of the time, the thesis statement comes in the last sentence of the introduction. So, in what order do I write the intro paragraph? No, you do not begin with the hook. Really hard for kids to get the hang of this. Instead, you write your thesis statement first. And that kind of holds the place for your ideas that you'll develop later. Then you'll review your thesis statement. And it should clearly state the claim, what you're trying to prove, and give 2 or 3 brief points, ways, or reasons you're going to prove your claim. Each of these points, again, will be a body paragraph in your essay. Last thing you should do is think about what could introduce your thesis or what comes to mind about the thesis, and this will help you narrow down and write the hook. Okay, so what kind of hooks are there? There's actually 6 types of hooks. Personal examples or observations, otherwise sometimes called anecdotes. Quotations, facts or statistics. Questions that you may answer throughout the essay. Current events. And using a contrast to the thesis statement. So, personal examples, kids love to write these. You provide a strong example or a true little story to use to make your point. While you can make up this experience, be careful and make sure it sounds believable. Okay, personal observation is different from a personal example. An observation is something you saw happening. So let's talk about this thesis. Cancer affects a patient physically, psychologically, and socially. This thesis is saying that the essay will discuss 3 aspects of cancer in a particular order in the essay. In other words, this essay is going to have 3 body paragraphs. Body paragraph 1 is going to talk about the physical aspects of cancer because that's the first quality we mentioned in our thesis statement. Body paragraph 2 is going to be the psychological aspects of cancer. Sorry, that's written wrong. And then body paragraph 3 is going to be the social aspects of cancer. Okay, so let's take an example of the first type of hook, a personal anecdote. On Friday, February 19, 2011, life changed for an 18-year-old young man who became ill from a bacterial infection. His body could not fight the infection. Why? After a week of examinations by several specialists, the diagnosis was made: leukemia, a cancer of the bone marrow. I am that young man. And then the transition, when a person finds out that he has cancer, just as I did, his whole world changes. Okay, so let's look at that in a complete paragraph. So the hook on Friday, February 19, 2011, life changed for an 18-year-old young man who became ill from a bacterial infection. His body could not fight the infection. Why? After a week of examinations by several specialists, the diagnosis was made: leukemia, a cancer of the bone marrow. I am that young man. When a person finds out that he has cancer, just as I did, his whole world changes. Cancer affects a patient physically, psychologically, and socially. So you can see he hooks the reader with his true story that he was diagnosed with cancer. Then, before we get to the thesis, he kind of has a sentence in between connecting why he told the story to the thesis he's about to introduce. And then he actually states the thesis with 3 different aspects of the thesis he's going to talk about. Okay, so you try it now. On a separate piece of paper, for the next example, I want you to write down and label the transition sentence. There may be more than one, don't forget. And then the second thing, according to the thesis, what will each body paragraph in the essay be about? So on your piece of paper, you can write body paragraph 1 equals, and the subject that body paragraph is going to be about. Body paragraph 2, what subject is that going to be about? Okay, and just so you know, this paper will be collected tomorrow and graded for your accuracy. Make sure you label these answers, example 2, slide 11. Throughout this whole video, you'll have other work to add to this homework. Okay, so here's the anecdote that you're going to be analyzing. One morning, a young mother had her 7-month-old son in his stroller near the family pool. After walking to the kitchen to get a knife so she could peel a peach for him, upon returning, she found him at the bottom of the pool. She immediately administered CPR to her son. If she had been gone any longer, he would have been one of the statistics that plague our country every year. Child drownings could be greatly reduced if parents never left their children unattended around water, pools were properly fenced, and other safety devices were installed in or by the pool. So that's the example you'll be annotating. Go back 1 slide to remember the things that you will be answering about. Okay. The second kind of hook is quotations. A quote does not have to be from a famous person, but remember, you have to use quotation marks. And the quote that you use as a hook must somehow relate to the thesis statement. So let's look at this example. The mind is its own place and it in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven. This thought by John Milton was recorded over 400 years ago, but it is still timely for us today. In life, we can be miserable when things are going well, just as we can be happy when things are going wrong. So then this writer transitions and says, he seems to be saying that we are the ones to control our lives. So his transition is actually kind of explaining the quote. And then the thesis says, with this thought in mind, we can control the way we face life through our attitude, our determination, and our ability. So pretty much, this writer chose a quote that was saying we control the way we face our life. And that's how the quote is related to the thesis. Okay, so for the next example, I want you to write down and label the transition sentences and write down and label the thesis sentence. Label your answers, example 2, slide 15. I am stupid. I am never going back to school. These are the words spoken by a learning disabled child when he was in 1st grade. Even parents of children with learning disabilities have often felt overwhelmed and unsuccessful in helping their children to seek the proper placement for them in the public school systems. School can be overwhelming for children who have trouble learning. The learning disabled student must deal with academic, social, and emotional problems. Okay, so another type of hook is using facts or statistics. All right, and if you use facts or statistics, they should be unusual facts or startling, because the idea is you want to give a fact that's going to hook the reader that they may not have known before. And also, if you give a fact or statistic, make sure it's from a credible source. It shouldn't be like from your best friend. Okay. So here's an example using facts or statistics. In the desert regions of Arizona, solar homes date back to the pre-Columbian Indians, who designed their homes in south-facing cliffs to receive the warmth of the winter sun. Today, solar homes are becoming popular across the country. These solar homes, as then, must be carefully designed to use the sun efficiently in the orientation, the exterior, and the interior. So, this writer, to get to the fact that solar homes must be planned really, really well, he gave you a fact that pre-Columbian Indians way back years ago planned well. Okay, so this was a great fact to use to kind of get you to think, oh, solar homes have been around for a really, really long time. Okay, so you're going to get another example coming up in the next slide. You're going to try it again on a separate piece of paper. You're going to write down and label the transition sentence or sentences. Write down and label the thesis sentence, and then write down and label what will the body paragraphs be, the subject of the body paragraphs. And remember, we get that from the thesis sentence because the thesis sentence tells us what reasons, ways, or each individual subject that's going to come up in the essay. Okay, you're going to label your answers, example 2, slide 19, and that example is going to come on the next slide. And here it is. According to an article in Family Safety and First Aid published by Berkeley Books, 7,000 residences burn each year, and 16 times a day somebody dies in one of these burning homes. The best way to deal with the possibility of loss from fire is to plan ahead before it happens. Otherwise, it is too late. In order not to become one of these statistics, Americans need to equip their homes with safety devices, set and adhere to safety rules, and practice a family escape plan in order to protect their families. Okay, so another kind of hook is using current events. Please remember, a current event should be recent. It should be made public by newspapers, television, radio. Okay, so here's an example. This morning's news reported that a young girl, age 5, was abducted from her classroom in the New York area. Residents were shocked to find that the kidnapper walked right into the child's classroom and no one stopped him. Although the child managed to escape, obviously safety procedures clearly broke down and this poor child paid the emotional price. In order to assure the safety of all children, schools across the country must review safety procedures, tighten safety protocols where necessary, and assure all staff members are properly trained. So as you can see, reporting that a young girl age 5 was abducted or stolen, kidnapped, immediately gets the reader's attention, and it certainly relates to this writer's thesis, because the thesis or the claim that this writer is making is that we have to tighten security because our schools are not safe. Okay, and so another method or hook that you can use is a contrast to what you're claiming. So the opposite, because contrast means opposite. And this kind of hook brings up an idea that is opposite to the thesis so that the real thesis will stand out more. So here's an example for you to look at. Since the middle 1940s, the plant commonly known as marijuana has been classified as a Schedule I drug, which recognizes marijuana as a dangerous narcotic similar to heroin. Research in the last few years, however, has brought many new discoveries relating to the possible uses of marijuana as a medicinal drug that can be used to treat many illnesses. So as you can see, the hook says negative things about marijuana. Then the transition, you start getting a clue, wait a minute, marijuana has a good side to it. And then the actual thesis says marijuana has been found to be effective in treating glaucoma, cancer, and a variety of other illnesses. So here, by using contrast in the hook, the reader realizes that drugs aren't always bad because marijuana, quote unquote, could be a good drug. So the contrast was effective in making the good part of marijuana stand out for the thesis. Okay, so let's recap the parts of an intro. It has a hook that grabs the reader's attention. There are 6 different kinds of hooks you can use in an essay. Okay, we've got examples for 5 of the 6. Number 4, rhetorical questions. I didn't cover in this video. I know you all know how to ask a question in introduction and then end up answering it in an essay. Okay, so the hook, the transition, that begins to narrow the focus of the introduction right before the thesis, and then the thesis, which clearly states the point of the essay, gives 2 to 3 reasons or points that will prove the thesis, and matches the order of the corresponding body paragraphs. This is important. The order that you mention your points in the introduction paragraph always matches the order of the body paragraph. Okay, so for tomorrow, bring in any homework that was generated from this video, and we will begin to write introduction paragraphs. Okay, thanks for listening. Here's my Works Cited page. Pirkey out.